The sky over New Centauri burned red and orange. Smoke rose from buildings that once stood tall and proud. This human colony, once a symbol of hope and progress, was now a war zone. Enemy alien ships called the Krell floated above the planet, like huge, dark spiders. Their purple weapons cut through the colony's shields like they were made of paper. Governor Darlene Wright stood by the big window in the command center. The only light came from flashing red emergency lamps. Her face looked tired and old. She had led this colony for 25 years, but nothing had prepared her for this attack. Most of their soldiers had died in the first attack. They had not been able to talk to Earth for 3 days now. No one could bring them food, medicine, or weapons. Governor, more people are dying in areas 4, 5, 6, and 7, said Chief Security Officer Alan Miller. His voice was rough because he had not slept for days. Our hospitals cannot help everyone. Darlene shut her eyes for a moment. How are our weapons doing? Alan did not answer. His silence told her everything. The aliens want us to give up completely, said Pam Garcia from her computer station. They say we have 6 hours to decide. Just then, the building shook as another bomb hit nearby. Dust fell from the ceiling onto their heads. The Andaran aliens have lost their fight. The Rigelian people have given up, said Deputy Governor Frank Tanner as he read reports on his screen. We are the only free human colony left in this part of space. Darlene turned to look at her team. These men and women had built this colony. With her, they all had families in the settlements that were now being destroyed. Send another call for help, she ordered. Send it everywhere on all radio channels, both secret and open. Governor, Earth is too far away to... Alan started to say. I know, Darlene stopped him. But we keep trying until we cannot try anymore. That is what humans do. As darkness fell over the colony, families crowded together in underground shelters. Parents told their children stories about Earth's powerful spaceships that would come to save them. But when the children weren't looking, the adults shared worried looks. They knew no help was coming. No rescue was possible. The closest human military base was weeks away, even at the fastest speed. In his partly destroyed house, old pilot Eddie Russo held his granddaughter tight as the building shook with each new bomb. Will we be okay, Grandpa? Lisa asked in a small voice that was hard to hear over the sound of explosions. Eddie, who had flown supply ships during the first contact war many years ago, gave her a smile. Of course, sweetheart. Humans have been through worse than this. But as he looked out the window at the burning city, Eddie knew there was no hope left. In the main shelter beneath the city center, hundreds of people sat on the floor. The air was hot and stale. Children cried from fear while their parents tried to comfort them. An old woman named Ruth Baker handed out cups of water. Her hands shook, but her face stayed calm. She had lived through the colony's hardest times, from the Great Storm of 45 to the crop failure of 51. But this was different. This was the end. The aliens will kill us all, a man shouted from the corner. Why don't we just surrender now? Because we are humans, another voice answered. It was Dr. Sam Wilson, the colony's most respected doctor. And humans don't give up. But privately, even Sam had doubts. He had spent the last 72 hours treating endless wounds with almost no medicine left. His white coat was stained with blood. His eyes were red from no sleep. He had seen too many people die today. Back in Ides, the command center, Governor Wright studied the latest damage reports. Half the colony was destroyed. Food supplies would last only 2 more weeks. The water purification system was damaged. And worst of all, their shield generator was failing. The Krell ships are moving, said sensor operator Jeff Simmons suddenly. His eyes never left his screen. They're forming a new pattern around the planet. Are they preparing for another attack? Darlene asked, her voice steady despite her fear. I think so, Jeff said. They're targeting our last shield generator. Darlene looked at the big map table that showed their colony. So many red dots marking destroyed areas, so few green ones showing places still safe. If they destroy the shield generator... Frank Tanner didn't finish his sentence. Then nothing will protect our people from the next bombing. Darlene finished. For him. How much time do we have? Based on their movement. Maybe 3 hours, Jeff said. Darlene made a hard decision. Prepare evacuation plans for the underground caves. We'll move as many people as we can. The caves won't fit everyone, Alan pointed out. I know, Darlene said quietly. But they'll fit the children. Outside, another explosion lit up the night. Sky. The ground shook. Lights flickered and died in another section of the city. In his home, Eddie Russo felt the bigger explosions coming closer. He gathered a few important things in a bag, some food, water, his old pilot medals, and a photo of his late wife. He put his sleeping granddaughter in her coat. Where are we going? Lisa asked sleepily. Somewhere safe. Eddie lied. There was nowhere safe anymore, but he wouldn't tell her that. As he stepped outside with Lisa in his arms, Eddie looked up at the night sky. Between the smoke clouds, he could see stars. Somewhere up there, past those stars, was Earth. Too far to help. Too distant to save them. All across New Centauri, the remaining humans prepared for what they believed would be their last night alive. Some prayed, some drank, some held their loved ones close. All of them knew the same truth. All hope was gone. The morning came with strange quiet. No bombs fell, no alarms rang. The silence felt wrong after days of constant noise. In the command center, Governor Wright and her team worked on the surrender papers. Their faces looked sad and tired. No one spoke much. What was there to say when you were about to hand your home over to alien invaders? The Krell ships are moving around, said Jeff Simmons from his sensor station. His eyes never left the screen. Wait a minute, there's something else out there. Darlene looked up quickly. What do you see? New ships at the edge of our star system. Very big energy readings. They're moving toward us fast. Darlene had learned not to hope for anything good this past week. Hope only made things hurt more in the end. But something in Jeff's voice made her heart beat faster. Show me on the main screen, she ordered. The big display lit up, showing the outer part of their star system. Strange bending and rippling appeared in space at the spot Jeff had marked. Then, with a bright flash that made their sensors stop working for a moment, ships began to appear. Not just any ships. Human ships. Those are ships from Earth, Alan said in a whisper as he recognized them. But they looked different from the ones I know. More ships kept coming out of what seemed to be a new kind of space travel. Tens, then hundreds of them. There were thin, fast attack ships, huge carrier ships, and support ships of types the colony defenders had never seen before. We're getting a message, Pam said, her voice shaking. It's from Earth. The screen changed to show a woman's face. She wore a uniform none of them knew. It was smoother and more fitted than normal Earth Fleet clothes, with badges that looked new. New Centauri colony, I am Admiral Catherine Holt from the United Earth Defense Force. We got your call for help. Hold on, help has arrived. No one in the command center could speak for a moment. But how? Frank finally asked. The closest Earth forces were weeks away from us. Admiral Holt's face grew serious. Many things have changed since the Krell started attacking colonies. Earth has improved what it can do. We'll tell you everything once your colony is safe, Undi. The battle screen. The Earth fleet was already fighting the Krell ships, which seemed to be confused and trying to get away. The battle looked nothing like previous fights between humans and Krell. The Earth ships moved with amazing speed and control, and their weapons cut through Krell shields that had always been impossible to break before. In the shelter under the main colony building, Eddie Russo felt the change before he heard any news. The sound of explosions was different. They were higher up in the sky now, not hitting the ground like before. When the announcement came over the speakers, children shouted with joy while grown-ups cried with relief. Eddie hugged his granddaughter tightly. His old pilot's senses told him something others might not have noticed yet. Whatever had just arrived above New Centauri wasn't the Earth fleet they knew. Something big had changed. In another shelter, Dr. Sam Wilson looked up from treating a wounded woman when he heard the news. People around him began to cheer and hug each other. Some fell to their knees in prayer. Others looked suspicious, afraid, to believe in good news after so much bad. "Is it really Earth?" asked a young boy near Sam. "Are we saved?" "Let's see," Sam said carefully. He had seen too much death to trust in miracles. Above the planet, the space battle grew more intense. The Krell ships, which had seemed so powerful and scary before, now looked slow and weak compared to Earth's new fleet. One by one, the alien ships exploded or tried to escape. Back in the command center, Darlene and her team watched in amazement. "The Krell flagship is trying to run away," Jeff reported, his voice now excited. 3 Earth destroyers are chasing it. "Earth ships have surrounded 5 Krell cruisers," Alan added. "They're demanding the aliens surrender." Pam looked up from her station. "Admiral Holt is asking to speak with you again, Governor." Darlene straightened her dirty uniform as best she could. "Put her through." Admiral Holt's face appeared on screen again. This time she was smiling slightly. "Governor Wright, the space around your colony is almost secure. We're dealing with the last few enemy ships now. Is your spaceport still working? We need to land troops to help with any Krell soldiers on the ground." "The east side of the spaceport is damaged, but the west landing pads should work," Darlene replied. "Admiral, how did you get here so quickly? And how are your ships defeating the Krell so easily? We couldn't even dent their shields." Something flickered in the Admiral's eyes. "As I said, Earth has changed, Governor. The Krell thought they understood what humans could do. They were wrong." She looked down at something off-screen. "I'm sending Captain Grace Kelly with the first wave of ground troops. She'll explain more when she arrives." In his damaged home, Eddie had decided to risk going outside with Lisa. They stood in their small yard looking up at the sky. Bright flashes lit up the clouds as the space battle continued. But these were different from the flashes of the Krell bombardment. These brought hope, not fear. "Look, Grandpa." Lisa pointed at something moving through the clouds. Eddie squinted and saw the shapes of ships, human ships, descending toward the colony. Their engines glowed blue instead of the usual red he remembered from his days as a pilot. They moved more smoothly too, almost like they were sliding through the air rather than pushing against it. All across the colony, people came out of hiding to watch the arrival of their saviors. They stood in streets filled with rubble. They climbed onto roofs of buildings still standing. They gathered in open spaces, looking up with wonder and relief. In the main square, Ruth Baker handed out the last of the water to thirsty children. When she heard about the Earth ships, she didn't believe it at first. At her age, she had seen too many false hopes. But when she finally looked up and saw the ships with Earth's symbol on them, she began to laugh and cry at the same time. "I told you," she said to no one in particular. "I always said Earth wouldn't forget about us." As the first Earth transport ships began to land at the spaceport, Governor Wright and her senior staff went to meet them. They walked through hallways with cracked walls and over floors covered in dust and broken glass. When they stepped outside, the morning sun hit their faces. It was the first time in days many of them had been outside the command center. The ship that landed was twice the size of any transport Darlene had seen before, yet it made almost no noise. Its surface seemed to shift colors slightly, matching the surroundings. When its doors opened and the ramp came down, everyone held their breath. The new arrivals had come, and with them something no one in the colony expected to feel again. Hope. The landing area at New Centauri spaceport was badly damaged. Big holes marked the once smooth landing pads. Several hangars were now just twisted metal. But this is where Governor Wright and her team waited to meet their saviors. The Earth. Ship that came down from the sky had Earth's symbol on it, the globe and stars, but everything else about it looked different. Its engines made almost no sound, and it moved more like a bird than a machine. When the ship landed and its door opened, the colony leaders got their first look at Earth's new soldiers. They wore armor unlike anything the colonists had ever seen. It wasn't the big, bulky suits that Earth soldiers used to wear. This armor looked more like a second skin that moved and changed colors slightly. Their helmets showed no faces, just shiny visors that seemed to be looking at everything at once. The first soldier to walk down the ramp took off her helmet. She was a woman in her mid-30s with very short blonde hair and eyes that seemed a bit too bright to be normal. "Captain Grace Kelly, 7th Tactical Response Division," she said with a sharp salute. "Are you Governor Wright?" Darlene stepped forward and held out her hand. "Captain, I think I speak for everyone on New Centauri when I say you came just in time." Grace shook her hand firmly. Her skin felt surprisingly warm given how strange her armor looked. "We came as soon as we got your message asking for help." "That's what I don't understand," Alan said. "You say you got our message, but we only sent it 7 days ago. The closest Earth fleet was at least 3 weeks away, even using the fastest ships we know about." Captain Kelly looked at her soldiers, then pointed to the colony's main building. "Maybe we should talk inside. We have a lot to explain." Once they were in the least damaged meeting room, Captain Kelly introduced her second-in-command, Lieutenant Kyle Ortiz, and their science officer, Dr. Betty Pierce. "To answer your most important question," Grace began, "we have developed new travel technology, the Einstein-Rosen Bridge Drive. It lets us, well, change the rules of space travel." "That's putting it simply," Kyle added with a small smile. "We can now travel in hours over distances that used to take weeks." "But that's impossible," Frank said. "The limits of faster-than-light travel were well known. Just the energy needed would be too much under the old understanding of physics." Dr. Pierce finished his sentence. "Yes, but when you really need something, you find a way to make it, and Earth has been very motivated since the Krell started attacking." Grace's face grew darker. "What you don't know, what we couldn't risk telling you even in secret messages, is that New Centauri wasn't the only target. The Krell attacked 12 human colonies all at the same time. 3 were destroyed before we could help them." The room fell silent. "So Earth has been at war," Darlene said quietly. "Earth has been changing," Grace corrected her. "Our factories, our scientists, our military training, everything has been made new to fight the Krell threat." Just then, a distant explosion lit up the sky outside the window. The colony leaders jumped, but the Earth soldiers didn't even turn to look. "That's just our cleanup operation," Kyle explained. "The Krell had ground troops getting ready to take over the colony. We're dealing with them now." Outside the meeting room, all across the damaged colony, people were coming out of shelters to see something amazing. Human soldiers in their strange new armor, moving through the streets with incredible speed and working together perfectly. They secured buildings, killed remaining Krell soldiers, and set up medical stations, all with a speed that seemed almost superhuman. Eddie Russo was walking with his granddaughter Lisa to get fresh supplies when he stopped to watch 2 Earth soldiers lift a fallen wall that would have needed heavy machines to move just weeks ago. Their armor seemed to pulse with energy as they worked. "Are they robots, Grandpa?" Lisa asked, her eyes wide. "No, sweetheart," Eddie answered, not completely sure himself. "They're humans, just different humans." In the colony's main square, Dr. Sam Wilson worked side by side with Earth medics. He watched in amazement as they used small devices to heal wounds in minutes that would normally take weeks to fix. "How are you doing this?" Sam asked as he watched a deep cut close-up almost instantly under a blue light. One of the medics, a woman named Olivia Parker, smiled. "Nanomedicine combined with targeted cell regeneration. The basic theory was around before the war, but we've made it work better now." "Before the war," Sam repeated. "You talk about it like it's been going on for years." Olivia's smile faded. "For us, it has. The Krell hit Earth's outer colonies 5 years ago. We've been fighting and adapting ever since." Across the colony, Ruth Baker helped serve food at a relief station set up by the Earth soldiers. The food was unlike anything she had seen before, small packets that expanded into full meals when water was added. "This is a wonder," she said to no one in particular as she watched hungry children eat their first real meal in days. "It's standard field rations," said the soldier, handing out the packets. His name tag read, Ramirez. Unlike most soldiers Ruth had met, he seemed calm and rested despite being in a war zone. "Don't you get tired?" Ruth asked him after watching him work nonstop for hours. Ramirez touched his armor gently. The suit helps. It makes us better, stronger, faster. He seemed to choose his words carefully. We can go for days without real sleep now. By the time evening came, the colony was buzzing with stories about the Earth soldiers. People watched them work with a mix of gratitude and unease. These were humans, yes, but they were different in ways that were hard to understand. In the governor's office, Captain Grace was helping Darlene plan the colony's rebuilding. Grace's helmet sat on the desk between them, and Darlene couldn't help but stare at it. The surface seemed to move slightly, like oil on water. "Your technology," Darlene said finally. "It's far beyond what we had when New Centauri was founded. It's beyond what Earth had just a few years ago." Grace nodded. "Necessity drives innovation. After we lost the Tau Ceti colony, Earth's governments united like never before. All resources went to defense and technology. All scientific research focused on one goal, survival. And your soldiers," Darlene continued carefully. "They're not just wearing advanced armor, are they? They've been changed somehow." Grace looked at her steadily. "We call it the Adaptive Service Program. Voluntary, improvements for military personnel, medical changes, neural connections." "How voluntary?" Darlene asked, unable to hide her concern. "Completely," Grace assured her. "But when the Krell destroyed our colony on Tau Ceti, there was no shortage of volunteers." Her eyes hardened slightly. "We lost 30 million people that day." Darlene gasped. News of such a terrible loss had never reached New Centauri. "The Krell cut all normal communication routes," Grace explained, seeming to read Darlene's thoughts. "Information warfare is part of their strategy." Outside the window, Earth soldiers continued their work as night fell. Unlike the military personnel the colonists knew, these enhanced humans needed little rest, could lift incredible weights, and seemed to talk to each other without speaking out loud. As darkness covered the colony, lights from Earth ships in orbit made new stars in the sky. For the first time in days, children went to sleep without fear. Adults dared to plan for tomorrow. But questions remained in many minds, spoken only in whispers. What exactly had Earth become in its fight against the Krell? And what would it mean for all humans going forward? As Eddie tucked Lisa into bed that night, she asked a question he wasn't sure how to answer. "Grandpa, are we going to be like them someday?" Eddie thought about the Earth soldiers he had seen that day. Their strength, their strange armor, their changed eyes. "I don't know, sweetheart," he said honestly. "But whatever happens, we'll still be human. That's what matters most." 2 days after the Earth forces arrived, New Centauri began to feel alive again. The sky was clear of alien ships, replaced by the protective watch of Earth vessels. Rebuilding had started with amazing speed, helped by technologies the colonists had never seen before. In what was left of the colony's main park, Captain Grace Kelly had set up a field headquarters. Darlene found her there, talking with her officers over floating 3D images that showed everything happening across the colony. "Captain," Darlene said as she approached, "your people have done in 2 days what would have taken us months." Grace waved her hand, and the floating images disappeared. "We came ready, Governor. Earth has learned hard lessons about quick response and recovery. Your soldiers, they're different," Darlene said carefully. "The way they move, their strength, how they never seem to get tired. They've been changed somehow, haven't they?" Something flickered across Grace's face. Maybe pride, maybe caution. "We call it the Adaptive Service Program, voluntary medical and neural enhancements for military personnel." "How voluntary?" Darlene asked, unable to hide her concern. "Completely," Grace assured her. "But when the Krell destroyed our colony on Tau Ceti, there was no shortage of volunteers." Her eyes hardened. "We lost 30 million people that day." Darlene was shocked. Such terrible news had never reached New Centauri. "The Krell cut all normal communication routes," Grace explained, seeming to read Darlene's thoughts. "Information warfare is part of their strategy." Across the colony, the Earth soldiers continued their work. Unlike the military personnel the colonists knew, these enhanced humans needed little rest, could lift incredible weights and seemed to talk to each other without speaking. In a temporary medical center, Dr. Betty Pierce worked with colonial medical staff, showing them advances that seemed almost magical. Healing therapies closed wounds in minutes rather than days. Brain connections diagnosed internal injuries without cutting people open. "It's like you've packed decades of medical progress into a few years," said Dr. Sam Wilson as he watched Betty heal a colonist's third-degree burns in minutes. Betty nodded, adjusting a device that glowed soft blue over the patient's skin. 5 years, to be exact. When you're fighting to survive, human creativity can do amazing things. Sam watched as burned skin became healthy again before his eyes. "Where does it end?" he asked quietly. "These changes? These advances?" Betty looked at him for a long moment. "We don't know yet. That's the point of adaptation. It keeps going as long as it needs to." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Kyle Ortiz led a team setting up a new defense ring around the colony. The technology they used, flying drones, sensors that could detect single life forms from orbit, energy shields that could stop direct attacks, was far beyond what the colony had before. Eddie Russo was asked to help because of his pilot experience. He worked with Kyle to map escape routes if they were ever needed again. "This mapping system is incredible," Eddie said, looking at the 3D projection that showed every building, underground area, and natural feature of the colony with perfect detail. "Our best surveys never got this level of detail." Kyle smiled slightly. "The drones mapped the entire colony in 6 hours using quantum imaging. It can see through walls, underground, everything." Eddie waited a moment before asking the question that had been on his mind since their arrival. "These advances, they came at a cost, didn't they?" The lieutenant's smile faded. He looked at Eddie for a long time before answering. "Everything worthwhile does, Mr. Russo. Earth is not the same place you left when you came to New Centauri. We've had to adapt in ways that would have seemed extreme before the war." "Are you still human?" Eddie asked quietly. Kyle rolled up his sleeve, showing skin marked with faint circuit-like patterns that pulsed with subtle light. "More human than ever in the ways that matter, sir. We've just embraced the next step in our growth, because the alternative was extinction." In another part of the colony, Ruth Baker helped Earth soldiers distribute supplies to families who had lost their homes. She worked alongside a female soldier named Maya Green, who carried boxes that would normally take 3 men to lift. "I hope I'm not being rude," Ruth said after watching Maya work for hours without rest, "but don't you people ever get tired?" Maya smiled. "We do, just not as quickly as before. The enhancements regulate our energy use. We'll need deep sleep eventually, but we can go about 72 hours at full capacity first." Ruth shook her head in wonder. "When I was young, such things were only in science fiction stories." "Life has a way of turning fiction into reality when we need it to," Maya replied. As the sun began to set, colonists gathered in small groups, sharing meals and stories about their experiences with the Earth. Soldiers. Some spoke with excitement about the amazing new technologies. Others voiced worry about what these changes meant. "They're not really human anymore," a man named Pete Davis said to the group around him. "I saw one of them get hit by falling debris yesterday. The metal cut right through his arm. But instead of blood, I saw something else, something that glowed blue. And the wound closed up in minutes." "Does it matter?" asked Judy Hansen, whose 2 children had been saved by Earth medics. "They saved us when no one else could. Who cares if they've changed?" "It matters if they want to change us too," Pete argued. "What if this is the new normal? What if being just human isn't enough anymore?" These conversations happened all across the colony that night. People wondered about Earth's transformation and what it would mean for places like New Centauri. Would they be left behind? Would they be forced to change too? In the governor's temporary quarters, Darlene reviewed reports about the colony's rebuilding. The progress was amazing. Areas that had been complete ruins were now usable again. Water and power systems were online. Food production was starting up. All thanks to Earth's advanced technology and enhanced soldiers. A knock came at her door. It was Captain Grace. "May I come in, Governor? There's something we need to discuss." Darlene nodded and Grace entered, carrying a small metal case. "What is it?" Darlene asked. "Earth Command has authorized me to offer something to your colony," Grace said, placing the case on the desk. She opened it to reveal a small device, about the size of a thumb. "This is a seed AI," Grace explained. "Artificial intelligence designed to grow and learn. If you accept it, it can be integrated into your colony's systems. It will help accelerate your rebuilding, enhance your defenses, and allow you to produce some of the technologies we've brought." Darlene looked at the small device. "And the cost?" "Integration," Grace said simply. "New Centauri would no longer be an independent colony. You would become part of Earth's new defense network. Your people would have access to enhancements, voluntary, of course, but your colony would serve as an outpost in humanity's expanded defense strategy." "You're asking us to change," Darlene said, understanding now. Grace nodded. "Adaptation isn't just for soldiers, Governor. It's for all humanity now. The Krell forced this path on us, but we've embraced it. Now we're stronger than we've ever been." Darlene looked out the window at her colony, damaged but alive, changing but surviving. "I need to discuss this with my people," she said finally. "This isn't a decision I can make alone." "Of course," Grace replied. "Take time to consider, but not too much time. The Krell will return, and when they do, they'll bring more ships, more weapons. They don't adapt as quickly as humans, but they do adapt." After Grace left, Darlene stood at the window for a long time, watching Earth soldiers work through the night, their enhanced bodies needing no rest, their changed minds focused on their tasks. Change or die, adapt or perish. The universe had presented humanity with a simple choice, and Earth had made its decision. 1 week after Earth's forces arrived, New Centauri held a special gathering in the partly rebuilt main square. The colony's flagpole, which had fallen during the Krell attack, was put back up. Both the New Centauri flag and the Earth flag would fly together, a sign of renewed unity and protection. As evening came, colonists gathered in the square. Many still had bandages and injuries from the attack, but their faces showed something that had been missing for too long: hope. Governor Wright stood on a simple platform with Captain Kelly. Behind them stood rows of Earth's enhanced soldiers, their armor shining in the setting sun. 1 week ago, Darlene began, her voice carrying across the quiet crowd, we were ready to give up. We thought humans had reached their limit, that the Krell were too strong, that our kind had met an enemy we could not beat. She pointed to the Earth soldiers and their officers. We were wrong. When all hope was gone, human soldiers arrived. Not just any soldiers, humans who had changed themselves, who had refused to accept defeat, who had found ways to become more than we thought possible. Captain Grace stepped forward. What happened here at New Centauri is happening across human space, she announced. The Krell thought they were fighting a weak, divided species. They didn't understand what humans do when we have no other choice. From the crowd, Eddie Russo watched with his granddaughter on his shoulders. Around them, colonists listened with faces showing awe, worry, and determined hope. The defense of New Centauri marks a turning point, Grace continued. For the first time since the Krell attacks started, they have been completely defeated, and this will not be the last time. Just then, a group of Earth fighter ships flew overhead, leaving trails of smoke in the colony's colors. Some of you have questions about what we've become, Grace said, looking across the crowd. You wonder if the changes we've made have cost us our humanity. I would say they've shown the heart of what humanity has always been, able to adapt, creative and unstoppable when united. She raised her hand, and the armor covering it seemed to flow like water, showing normal human skin before covering it again. The crowd gasped. This is not our final form, Grace said softly, yet everyone heard her. This is just one step on humanity's journey. The Krell tried to end that journey. They failed. Later that night, as celebrations continued across the colony, Eddie found himself at a quieter gathering where Earth soldiers talked with colonists, sharing stories and answering endless questions about life back on Earth. Eddie approached Captain Grace, who stood slightly apart, watching the interactions thoughtfully. "You've given them back their hope," Eddie said, nodding toward the colonists. "That's no small gift." Grace smiled slightly. "Hope is important, but so is strength. The two must go together now." "Is Earth winning this war?" Eddie asked directly. "We're no longer losing it," Grace replied honestly, "and that's the first step to victory." Above them, the night sky was clear for the first time in weeks. Stars shone brightly, and in orbit, the lights of Earthships moved in protective patterns. Eddie looked at the woman beside him, human, yet changed in ways he couldn't fully understand. "My granddaughter wants to be like you when she grows up," he said after a moment. "She's been watching your soldiers. Yesterday she asked me if she could go to Earth someday and become evolved like all of you." Grace turned to him, and for a moment her eyes seemed to glow slightly in the darkness. "And what did you tell her?" "I told her that humans have always evolved when we needed to," Eddie replied. "That's how we survived ice ages and crossed oceans and reached the stars. So yes, maybe someday she would evolve too, but she should never forget where she came from." The captain nodded slowly. Wise advice. She looked up at the stars. The Krell thought they understood humans based on what we were. Their mistake was failing to imagine what we could become. All across the colony, people celebrated their survival and thought about their future. Children who had hidden in fear, a week earlier, now played at being enhanced soldiers. Adults talked about what humanity's transformation would mean for colonies like theirs. And in orbit, Earth's fleet kept watch, ready to respond to any new threat with humanity's new power. The message was clear. Humanity would not die out quietly. They would adapt. They would evolve. They would survive. All hope had been gone. Then, human soldiers arrived, and with them came the dawn of humanity's next chapter.